near 84. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms. I don't know why.
Alex Carrick, or how do you do, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. All right. Hit us with wisdom, man.
Hit us with wisdom. I mean, there's a lot going on. We're still getting a bunch of information with this whole war on Iran stuff, inflation factors, stuff like that. I actually just saw a chart that it kind of compared, I think it was back into the Jimmy Carter era. It's kind of shocking how exactly things are lining up. So it was from 67 to 83 on the CPI factors, so the Consumer Price Index, and then 2015 to present. And I'll try and share this maybe on my Facebook page, but the two graphs are like almost
Really?
exact.
And what's that gauging again?
That's the Consumer Price Index. Yeah, so talking about inflation, talking about everything.
Interesting.
I talked with a couple clients that, thinking about refinancing, they don't know what's going on, and, I get the age-old question, what's the crystal ball say?
Yeah.
And I've kind of stopped saying I have a crystal ball because I know that if there's a benefit for what you guys are going through right now, let's do it. Let's pull the trigger, because who knows what could happen. If inflation continues on its trajectory, prices keep going up, interest rates are going to go up too, because interest rates and inflation are enemies. So, I mean, if you're thinking something's going to happen for the positive, you can maybe wait a little bit. But if you're going through a hard time right now, there's some debt you need to get paid off. Let's at least look at it and see if it makes sense. There's just so many factors going on right now, and it's just kind of hard to see. So,
all right. Sounds good. So basically just customize the advice. People can get that by getting a hold of you.
Yeah, and it's, I'm not going to have an application or something. If you want to call in and say, hey, let's schedule time and, just chat about things. I have a couple, programs I can use to just kind of say, hey, you got credit cards at 25% interest. Your house is at 4.5% right now. Does it make sense to pay it all off, start a new mortgage or do a home equity line of credit?
So before you get into the deep dive stuff that requires unfreezing a credit, if somebody has that, you can do a sort of a glance over and see, it looks like maybe this would be something worth diving into.
Yep, exactly.
All right, cool. All right, very good. And, of course, people can get your contact info, get started, get more information at iwantagreathomeloan.com.
Because you do.
We've got Traffic Update live from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed. All right, so it does appear as if we are on our YouTube stream live, and we may, in the future, kind of talking to Sarah here, figure out if you want a way to where we can move people around and not have me sit here so you're not exactly center, because you seem to not want to be.
I do not like this, and I do not like the lighting. I look like I'm dead and 900 pounds.
You look like you're in a restaurant with this
from
restaurant
this angle.
lighting, yeah.
I feel really bad for people who have looked at me from this angle.
Well, I hope people.
Do I look like?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we absolutely could. Yeah, because that empty space is where Tom Martz will be. People who are watching, Darren Chappell, I think, should be there in a bit. And so, anyhow, I guess the audio and everything sounds fine.
I guess
okay,
so.
all right. So we appreciate your patience on it, and we'll fine tune it as time goes on. But then when we are Wednesdays out, that's probably going to be a little bit easier because our table's much longer there at Springfield Livestock, and so that should be a little bit easier now that we kind of, at least we've launched the shuttle. We should be able to fine-tune some things. So just most of you that are watching are probably just glad that you can watch it again, even though it's not in studio. Okay, you can find it Springfield's Talk 1041 on YouTube, where you normally watch us while in studio and now out on the road as well. There's been an increasing recognition that, and we've seen this before, the elites, if you will, are telling the victims of their bad policy decisions that are the results of their bad policy decisions that noticing those negative results is bad on us. And it's not just here in the United States. Here in the United States, and this is in the context of immigration, illegal immigration, refugees, one of the problems that a lot of Americans have had with the Biden administration in particular allowing as many illegals to pour into the country as possible and helping facilitate it, inviting them, is that with those individuals came murderers, rapists, child sex traffickers, and the result was people getting murdered, raped, sex trafficked, because this is what some of those people would do. And anytime you would point it out and say, yeah, this is a problem, this is not a good result, then you are racist, you are xenophobic, you are the problem. And the victims are all of the good illegals. Even after 9/11, there were sort of these hints from the Bush administration that we need to be careful not to alter our view of the religion of peace. There were concerns, and some were much more verbal about it. Some even declared that was their biggest concern, that the worst thing to come out of 9/11 was the Islamophobia. Not, the terrorist attack itself, not the children growing up without parents, none of that. It was the fact that some people that were Muslim might get a suspicious eye or a dirty look every so often. In Europe, this is really becoming more prevalent, and one of the more stark examples actually was sometime last year. There were these two girls, I think they were in Ireland, and they were, if I remember right, they were being followed, they were being trailed by someone who had been imported as a refugee, and I don't know whether they were in the country of Ireland legally or illegally, and this could have been Scotland as well. But there was a video that went viral because they were just really kind of fighting back at this guy who had threatened them. And many people saw it as, hey, these are our children. Our children should not have to worry about their safety because our government has decided it's a good idea to bring people in from countries that have completely different values and cultures than ours, while others saw these two white girls as being completely racist, and they were the problem. Earlier this week in the UK, there was a Sudanese individual that was apparently he was dishonest, fraudulently claiming his refugee status, and he attempted to behead a citizen of the UK. And already we are seeing this, once again, this proactive effort that the real concern here is the extreme right that will use an isolated incident like this to stir up anti-immigrant sentiment, anti-Islamic sentiment. Now, in the broad picture, I think that it should not go unnoticed that for all of these concerns, whether it's 9/11 or the generations almost, I mean, it was over a decade of these rapes that were being covered up. They were specifically Pakistani Muslims that were raping hundreds and hundreds of underage girls in the UK, but it was covered up because no one wanted to be accused of being Islamophobic, or the numerous terrorist attacks in England or some of these other countries in the name of Islam. For all the concern about some massive backlash against Muslims, have we ever seen that? I mean, sure, you will get served up oftentimes maybe an interview with someone who's Muslim claiming that they feel uncomfortable, they feel as if people are sneering at them, and that may very well happen, but it isn't as if there are some sort of terrorist attacks back against them. This backlash that we're constantly being warned and told even exists, this extreme right-wing reaction using isolated incidents to go after people of the Islamic faith, where is that happening? Are there roving gangs of white people that are kidnapping people that are suspected of being Muslims across Europe, across the United States? This is much like the extreme right-wing domestic terrorist hoax that we kept hearing during the Biden administration, that was the most potentially dangerous terrorist threat that we faced in this country, where all of these right-wing, yet none of this ever happens. The New York Times has a piece about this, and I guess it was in Belfast specifically, the Sudanese national that tried to behead the guy. The New York Times, June 10th, writing a piece claiming that the real concern was the anti-immigrant sentiment. And they, in the entire piece, they never even used the word beheading. They described it as him moving his hands around the neck of the victim. Never even used the term beheading. And according to the New York Times, it is far-right figures that, quote, spread misinformation and speculation about the attacker online. Now, of course, they never identify any examples of the misinformation. This is something else the media does. They claim that an incident like this, that there's no real outrage, and there's certainly no reason for real outrage, but it's just, quote, right-wingers, and part of the way that the right-wingers stir up this massive anti-immigrant sentiment is by spreading false information. Yet they never list what the false information is. They never say, here is one of the claims that they're making. Here's why it's not true. Here is claim number 2. Here is the truth about that claim. They never give any examples. And I think that says a lot. Now, I want to take a break and continue on because there's the old story of the emperor has no clothes, which really got its popularity in the 1800s, Hans Christian Andersen. But there were variations of that story from centuries before, and a lot of people are familiar with the term "the emperor has no clothes," but they don't necessarily understand the story behind it or the lesson there. But it is an absolute perfect fit. It is the emperor has no clothes. That fable was a warning, if you will, or an illustration of what we are dealing with today, where we are told that when you see right before your very eyes people of a different culture imported in to a culture that is much different from theirs, and then they behave in a manner that might be more normal in their culture, try to behead people, and then we're told that no, they're not the problem. The people who have a problem with it are the problem. So Friday Road Shows, we broadcast live here from Scramblers, not only, of course, across the airwaves, ksgf.com, the stream, but we are also on YouTube, as we normally are on studios. You can find us there. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. The emperor has no clothes. That's a term that a lot of people have heard. They're somewhat familiar with. And the old story, and it does go back centuries, but it was really popularized on Christian Andersen in the 1800s. There's a story about this king, and the king just obviously fancied himself to be brilliant. And one day, a couple of swindlers. This is a very rough version, but they come to the king and they tell him that they are that they make clothes, and that they not only make the most beautiful clothes in the world that are worthy of only a king, but they have these magical threads that only the most elite, the most bright, the most intelligent, the most worthy people can actually see the threads. And it makes the clothing magical, and so the king thinks, well, this is a great this is fantastic. If I had clothes like this, first off, I'm worthy of it. But in addition to being worthy, I can tell who's around me. That way I know my counsel, whether they're bright, whether they are worthy of leadership roles, and so it can kind of help sift those people out for me. And so he hires the individuals, and so they're in a back room and they're working on the clothing, and he wants to check on it. But then he sort of doubts himself a little bit. He's like, my gosh, what if I actually, I mean, I know, of course, I'll see the threads in the clothing because I'm worthy, I'm king, but what if I don't? And so he sent in his most trusted wise advisor, and the trusted wise advisor goes in. Of course, he doesn't see anything, but the two swindlers are like, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it amazing? And it's like, yeah, it is. This is awesome. Man, this is the most beautiful thing ever, because he doesn't want to be exposed as to himself or to others as not worthy. So he goes to the king, and it's like, you won't believe these clothes. They're incredible. And so this goes on. And so eventually it culminates into the king himself, finally seeing these royal clothing that was developed for him, and he doesn't see anything, but he's like, oh my gosh, I can't deny that that there's anything here, because I'm the king. What will happen to my people if they think I'm not worthy? And so everyone is pretending for the sake of proving that they're elite, that they can see the clothing. And so there's a huge parade in order to showcase the magical clothing. And of course, everyone's like, oh, it is beautiful, because nobody wants to speak the truth for fear of being labeled unworthy. No one wants to speak the truth for fear of being chastised by the elite as unsophisticated and unintelligent. But then there's one child that doesn't really understand the concept of all of this and hollers out, well, the emperor has no clothes. He's naked. And then eventually other people start like, well, yeah, actually that is true. And so one of the meanings is the telling of, the moral of the story is, well, if you surround yourself with yes men, then you can oftentimes look like a fool. But I would argue in the broader picture, it's also a reflection of how willing people are to accept or to deny what's right before their very eyes in order to not be dismissed as ignorant, not be dismissed as stupid. They want to prove they're part of the elite. And what the left has managed to do is weave into that morality. So if, for example, you dare acknowledge the emperor has no clothes and that illegal immigrants coming into this country are causing an increase in crime and people are getting raped and murdered and human trafficking, and this is not good policy for the United States, then you are not only, because you don't recognize that the emperor has clothes, that you are not only unintelligent, you're not only a simpleton, but you're immoral as well. And it's one of the ways that they keep people in line. And if they can't win you over, they keep your mouth shut because you're too afraid of not being part of the accepted class. And so when it comes particularly to this illegal immigration stuff, it really truly is an example of the emperor has no clothes. We're broadcasting live from Scramblers. We're going to have Darren Chappell join us here in mere moments. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Saturday, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 85 and heat index values as high as 93. And for Sunday, partly sunny with a high near 74.
All right, well, I don't care for much of that, but nonetheless, Darren Chappell joins us this morning. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. Hey, I wanted to run this by you. I saw yesterday this story. Missouri State Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick is warning that the state will completely run out of money in the next few years without changes to spending. Quote, it's really bad.
Yeah. If only somebody had been screaming about that for the last 4 years, huh?
It's...
I mean, I've been saying
I know.
very
No,
thing.
I know, yeah. Well, and part of what is...
And I'm not the only one. I don't mean to make
no, I know,
but I mean, I have been.
But this is the thing. Obviously, Republicans run everything, and part of the Republican platform, I would say, or one of the reasons that voters vote for Republicans is fiscal responsibility. And then they get confused because they see stuff like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
And I'm not knocking Scott, okay? But Scott was budget chair before he was,
Was he then sounding the war, or was, I guess,
No,
his budget
this was
chair? This is sort of what he's been part of the problem, I guess.
Well, it's not even that he was part of the problem. He served, as did everybody else before me, over the last 10 years. During the time in which Washington, D.C. was dumping money into the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
That's where these budget numbers came from. I mean...
well, and let me ask you if this is part of the problem, too. All that money's coming in, and so then it gets handed out, and the people, the departments, the different areas of government that got that tsunami of COVID money, they get used to it.
Uh-huh.
And so then when it goes away... They're like, we can't go without. If we go, you're gonna cut this, you're gonna cut that, you're gonna. Don't you care about autistic kids? And so, it's sort of.
There's
I mean,
weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Oh yeah.
And
it's what you get for doing something nice.
Right. I mean, but the reality of it is that I've said this 1,000 times. I know everybody's sick of hearing it. Budgets are financial documents, no doubt. Budgets are planning documents, no doubt. But budgets, most importantly, budgets are priority documents. So if a dollar is spent on something in the budget, that means that thing was deemed more important than all the other stuff that didn't get funded. Okay? So it's a prioritization document. What we're doing now, so we cut $4.11 billion out of the budget this year, which I believe is the largest cut in the Missouri state budget in history. Okay, it's more than 7% reduction in 1 year. We need to cut another $4 to $5 billion next year. I mean, that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
We've got to get down to around $44 billion, and then we will be where we were pre-COVID, inflation adjusted. Because in the last 7 years, since 2019, in the last 7 years, the budget general revenue coming in has increased 39% over the last 7 years. And that's great. That's good growth. Over 7 years, almost 40% of general revenue. Right. That's Missouri money coming to Missouri. The problem is, because of all the government stuff from Washington, over that same time frame, spending has increased more than 85%. So, there are people who serve their entire time in the House of Representatives, never understanding it's hard to write a budget. And those days are gone. And we now have to be serious about it, like I've been trying to be for 4 years.
Yeah. Well, and these are I guess, arguably incidental perspectives, but it's just part of what grates on me is you had that massive influx of COVID dollars. The vast majority of went to things that, in our minds, we're like, yeah, print it, spend it, because it's going to like fill this gap that would not exist if not for COVID, like people losing their paychecks and that sort of stuff. Well, instead, it's just used even in Springfield. They're like, oh, the art museum, you need some money? Sure, here's COVID dollars. And where you have cities, I think Springfield even was doing this at one point. We have all this COVID money. We don't know what to do with it. Let's have a town hall meeting. People can tell us how to spend it. And so some of these different divisions of whether it be government or the recipient of government dollars, when they got this, let's say, unexpected bonus money, instead of, once it's gone, being grateful and thinking we were able to do a lot of great things we would not have otherwise been able to do, now they pitch a fit because it's going to go back to the way it was before that bonus money came in. And it's just that level of entitlement and lack of gratitude to the taxpayers that really puts just a little bit of icing on that bitter cake for me.
No doubt. And the departments, not all of them, but some of them, at the state level, they are like those proverbial 19, 20-year-old kids that don't want to leave home because they've become accustomed to a lifestyle.
Oh, sure, right.
They cannot reproduce it in the real world. And so they're just, I'm good.
Well,
I'll hang out here.
Well,
wait a second. We can't afford to feed your dizzy self. You've got to go.
Well, and not only is it that they just don't want to get out there, they feel entitled not to.
Yeah. And if they do, this is part of the problem. And I don't mean to get all sociological here, but this is part of the problem with younger generations. That you see the memes. In 1972, one income could provide for a car and a home, and that house was 900 square feet. It didn't have central air. It had some windows and a fan. And I know because we live there.
Well, and there were a lot less things to spend money on.
You bet.
Entertainment things that people feel are necessary.
You bet. And Mom largely stayed home.
Yeah.
And so you weren't spending money on daycare, right? And you didn't get all of nobody. You know what the swimming lessons were? We're going to run you down to the river and toss you in.
Yep.
And all the stuff that we now, and so young people are in this economy and in this mentality. And when they say I need to be able to, it's not fair that I can't buy a home. They're wanting to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-car garage, central air, with a yard in a subdivision, and Shazam, that's $250,000, $300,000, and they go, well, that's not fair.
Yeah, and still pay for a $1,200 phone and $100 a month on that, and then $100 a month on the internet,
and
then
student loans out the wazoo,
and $200 a month on different sorts of apps and programming, and then going out money, and all of these things. To your point, that they weren't really even options back then. But the fact of the matter is, there's still options.
Dude, macaroni and cheese with tuna. Big night at the old Chapel House.
Well, sure, and not to mention, even when I was a kid, of course, we had a Nintendo and a Coleco.
Yeah, we didn't have none of that.
But that was like a one-time, purchase. But point being is, the cost associated with an entire summer of entertainment was zero because you just went out when you woke up and rode bikes until the streetlights came on and you came back in. And if you had cable, it was like $19. It was basic cable. You didn't, it was just.
Yeah. We didn't have none of that. My cousin had a BB gun. I wasn't allowed to have one. Now, I'd like to think it's because we just didn't have the money. It's entirely possible they just did not trust me with a BB gun. But we only had one BB gun for all of us cousins to share. And, of course, we ran out of BBs in like 20 minutes.
Right.
So we would go down to the hog wallow, and we would shove the barrel down into the muck and the mire of the hogs, and then pump that up about 20 times and splatter each other with hog manure. And
it was an early version of paintball.
It was, and we were doing it too. And
we got Darren Chappell with us. We do have to get a break in here as we continue the Friday Road Show from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed. Darren Chappell joins us this morning as we play Back in My Day.
Well, and let me back up. Just a
We
little bit.
used to just whack each other with sticks for fun.
I got a stick outside if you want to keep it up.
Got a whippoorwill tree, and man, I tell you.
I'm just saying.
No, I'm with you.
The economic expectations of one generation to another. A lot of young people say, "Well, why can't I have what mom and dad have?" Well, because it took mom and dad 40 years to get to that point.
And
That's
sometimes
why.
Dad works 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah. And sometimes both parents have worked a lot of hours over the years. I was fortunate. I've always worked a couple, 3 jobs at a time. I've turned adult ADHD into a career path is what I've done. And so I've always had a couple, 3 jobs, and that allowed my wife, when our children were little, to stay home.
Yeah.
But it was tough. And we sacrificed so that they never knew how poor we actually were. That was the goal, and I think we pulled it off mostly.
Well, and there's also been this mindset of, I think there was a period of time you got a job, and the reason you worked was to survive. Now, and I've heard it numerous times, people that, I can't find a job. I don't mean personally, but anecdotally. And, well, there's all these jobs. Yeah, but I have a degree in this. I shouldn't have to do that job.
Well, that's a bummer.
Right. But in their minds, that means it's not an option.
Yeah. The one and only time I was ever fired, I went out and got 3 jobs to compensate. And I was lumping Christmas trees over here at the Christmas tree lot over here on Battlefield. And I got a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I was cleaning some office buildings at night. And I was doing this to make sure my daughter, who was 9 months old, and it was her first Christmas, and I got fired, I had to make up.
Why'd you get fired?
Oh, because I was horrible.
What was the job?
It was insurance.
Oh.
It was an insurance, but it was different than the insurance that I've done elsewhere. It was not a good fit, and I was not the good. It wasn't the company. It was me.
Right.
And I was 22, 21 years old, and I deserved to be fired. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But this is the difference between adults and children. You're going to whine about it,
or you're just going
to
handle
it. Right. So, with these departments, I've gone to them, the ones that answer to my subcommittee. I've gone to them and I've said, okay, here's the number we got to hit. You help me find what we can do to get to that number, and because I want your input, I don't want to cut anything that you have to have.
Right.
And if you don't help me, okay,
then it's out of your hands.
I'll come through with a wrecking ball, and I'll just do it all. But if I do it, it's going to be much more difficult on you than if you help me do it.
Right.
Because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it all works as far as your, division, the Department of Social Services. That is a megalith of a department, and I don't understand every detail. But if I got to come in and say, okay, we are going to cut $2 billion out of your budget, just a round number, and you don't help me, that doesn't mean we're not going to make the cut.
Right, yeah.
It means it's not going to be something you enjoy.
I used to work with a guy, and I was roommates with him for a while, who had gotten fired from KFC early in his life because he wanted to know how many times you could bread and dip the chicken. Like, I think it was the extra crispy. And so he did it once, and then he thought, I wonder if I do it again, will it get better each time? And he got up to 7.
Yeah.
And then he got fired for screwing around.
Tell him I'm sorry about that, by the way.
I will tell him. He's done fine for himself since then. We got Darren Chappell with us. We continue the Friday Road Show, which is streaming on YouTube if you want to watch while you listen, much like you would as we are in studio. But now from Scramblers, I'm Nick Reed. Darren Chappell with us this morning. I
Hey,
do
can
not
I-
like this morning at all.
I enjoy it because on the rare occasions that I fill in for you and I make mistakes, I feel really bad because I'm not a radio guy. I'm a guy on the radio. But you guys make me feel so much better when you have mornings like this where you just have one technical aggravation after another. It just makes me smile inside.
And you're like, and you see how she's just like, it's not me. It's all.
Yeah, I know. You don't have a microphone, but thank you.
There's a reason for that. Hey, I wanted to. And
Before we change
Yeah.
subject, can I just clarify something? I want to make sure. I don't want to be misunderstood. Scott
uh-huh.
is not the reason why the budget exploded. He's not.
Right.
He was there when that began.
Well, and
And it was because of Washington, D.C. Now, should we have taken that money? I don't think so. But that wasn't his decision either.
right. No, I
He
get
was
it.
handling the situation. He is also correct now that it's going to be bad. And it is. But it's only going to be bad because we don't have any options. The time for a downward, easy slide into this was 4 years ago when I started screaming about it. We don't have that now. So now it's going to go from point A to point B with a precipitous drop. And it has to because we don't have debt in the state of Missouri. So we will not borrow
Yeah.
that money. We will cut it. And the only thing I can tell you is it gets real easy to say no to stuff when there's no money. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and people condition themselves to think. Well, you even do this in your own life, right? You set yourself a budget. Most people do. Maybe they don't even when it comes to their own expenses and finances. And they think, man, we would be in real trouble if something happened. Everything is allocated for. But then you think, 5 years ago, we made a significantly less amount of money.
Absolutely.
And we felt that way then. How have we got, you always fill your closet,
20
whatever size it is.
29 years ago when I got my first job that actually paid something, anything at all, I paid more in taxes last year than that was. Now, I have three.
And that ain't because you're rich.
No, I have. Yeah, that's true too. But I have. I work 3 jobs.
Yeah.
The legislature is one part of it, and it's the smallest part. But I have three actual income streams because I'd go nuts, man. I'd be climbing a bell tower
Right.
somewhere if I didn't have something to do. I mean, it's just all there is to it.
That would be the hobby he would choose.
But anyway, I'm sorry to get you. We're going to go.
No.
move to something else.
In fact, I was like, I don't want to ask this question because we don't have enough time anyway, and so I will save it for next time when we have you on again.
Yeah, I'm spending all my time right now talking about Amendment 5 largely.
Well, and it was related to that, but we'll probably have you back even again outside of this regular session that we
Yeah.
have. But in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All
It's
right,
good to see you
appreciate
guys
it,
as always.
as
Thank
always.
you for having me.
Darren Chappell, everyone, as we continue the Friday Road Show out here at Scramblers here until 9 o'clock, as we are every Friday, and now streaming live on YouTube from here as well. You can find us YouTube looking for Springfield's Talk 1041. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome, everyone, to hour number 2. My name's Nick Reed, broadcasting live from Scramblers this morning in Springfield. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor for just really living life. We're pretty fortunate with the trees that we have in our backyard, particularly with that evening, that sort of late afternoon evening sun when it can be so hot, and our outdoor living space is mostly covered by the shade, and so you get a nice breeze, and even on days when it is really, really hot, for us, nature helps take care of some of that. Now, you may not have that situation, but with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, they can accommodate that. Well, one, they, of course, do landscaping with the hardscaping, but they can build you whatever sort of infrastructure helps keep you out of that sun. Or maybe you want the full sun. You like to sit out there and sunbathe. You like to get those vitamins straight from the sun. They can do that for you as well. When Daniel Hunter comes to your home, he's going to find out, what do you use this for? What do you want to use it for? Tell me about what you envision. And he will then craft around what you want the experience to be like and say, how about this? How does this look for you? And if you're like, well, how about this and that? So you can work together on it. But he really does the vision, and you hear that a lot from feedback from folks that, like, I just in my head couldn't really necessarily picture it, but I told Daniel what I wanted, and man, is it absolutely a dream. Hardscaping, landscaping, drainage issues, and lighting for your home. HunterHardscapes.com. Also, you can find Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. We're going to chat with Tom Martz here in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Saturday, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 85. Heat index values as high as 93. And for Sunday, partly sunny with a high near 74.
And we got Mr. Tom Martz with us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I forgot the microphone was over there. Sarah didn't have it already.
Well, there's a lot going on, man. Just don't poke her. Don't poke her. Don't.
Well, she already broke her water this morning, so.
right before the show started. Was it Lily that knocked his coffee over that one time? Yeah, he did the same with his laptop. Didn't realize the coffee was behind it.
He didn't drink coffee. Oh, it was her coffee.
May have been, or whoever was sitting there
tea,
before him, or maybe it was a tea. I just remember. So water, no biggie. And to knock over a water and not hit any of our equipment, it's a talent.
It is.
It is a
talent. Hey, I got to give super props to my favorite congressman, Thomas Massey.
Yes.
He went on record on Monday on something I think should have been done years and years and years and years and years ago. But people are, if you go do one of these man-on-the-street things, very few people would have ever heard of the USS Liberty.
Oh, sure.
I think it's one of those things for countless decades you never even realized that something like that occurred. And people are going, well, why did he do it now? Well, it is possible that he never even heard about it. It is also possible that he just decided that, okay, well, there are others in this chamber who probably are more in-depth knowledge-wise to do something like this.
Well, and it's not like it's some ongoing top of mind thing that he's ignored and all of a sudden decided to. I mean, it's this is somewhat historical. So what difference does it make if it's now versus? I mean, when would have been an appropriate time for him?
Well,
to
it
bring
did
this up?
happen, so it's not like
Right,
they can.
right.
Oh, well, that's a conspiracy
Right, yeah,
theory.
yeah.
That I mean, the only conspiracy theory is did the Israeli jets believe that it was an Egyptian ship,
Right,
which they
right.
said. Although, and there are some really good YouTube shows based on the USS Liberty, and we have a gentleman 8 miles from here who was on the USS Liberty. And there have been times where I've been riding out there that I've talked to him
The one with
on
the
the frontage
signs.
road. Yeah,
I didn't know he was on it.
yeah.
I just thought he had a great deal of interest in it, but I didn't know that he was on it.
Yeah, he was actually.
Well, now I thought it was just. Well, sometimes you kind of come across something and you're like, this is an injustice, and you weren't connected to it, but it becomes sort of a cause. I didn't know he was actually on it. Well, now I guess I definitely understand why it's.
Well,
why
I actually
it's a
went back
significant thing for him.
to.
And, but Massey's calling for an investigation, right, or a relook at this. is
Yeah,
what-
he wants it to be looked into because
Sure.
what we're being told is that in 1967 on June the 8th that on a very sunny day a ship flying the Stars and Stripes after it was already looked at and verified, I guess, that it was an American ship. And it was the only one in that location because of what the ship was for. It was for listening to and listening in on all the correspondence from all the different foreign actors about the Six-Day War. Well, later on, the ship came under attack by French MiGs, which is what Israel flew at the time. And then after the French MiGs decided to completely stop its attack, then it came under attack by torpedoes. It came under attack by a chemical agent that was dropped on the ship's bridge and the ship's, the open areas of the ship. And the accepted narrative is that, they just mistakenly thought that the ship was Egyptian. Okay, it's flying an American flag. It has the outline of a typical U.S. Navy ship. And you're just going to accidentally think it's an Egyptian
So
ship?
is the belief, and we do. I don't want to get so far into this. Our break is
Oh, we could
happening
do the whole
10
show
minutes. Oh, I
on
know.
USS Liberty.
So because my initial question was going to be asked, like, is there a theory or a hypothesis as to why Israel did this, if they did know, or was it just it was to shut down us listening, or you know what I'm saying? Like, what were there any just like here's why we think that this was a deliberate action and not an accident?
I think there's three manners in which people are questioning this, and I always think somebody who you should always be curious as to why something happened. As soon as you lose that curiosity, then you basically you lose any type of being able to think outside the box. But A was that they believed that if they attacked the USS Liberty, then they could bring the United States in to the Six-Day War.
So did that theory, I guess,
because the ship would have been proclaimed to be being attacked by Egypt, not Israel.
So why? So I guess then this may be obvious. That theory is based off the idea that they thought we would think it was Egypt doing it.
Correct.
Why did? Because they were. What were they flying though? Why would we have thought they were
French
Egypt?
MiGs, which is also at that point in time what Egypt had.
Okay,
as
got
part
it.
of
Okay,
their,
got it. Okay.
And the second thought process is the ship had special listening equipment to be able to, and they had like decoders.
So maybe
on the
like to
ships.
take those out?
Yeah, take out
Okay,
the listening
right.
devices,
Okay.
and that way you could in reality retaliate in ways that are far above and beyond the normal basis of retaliation and get away with it because there's nobody overseeing or watching what it is that you do. And then the third way is they mistakenly took it as an Egyptian ship.
Okay, got it.
I just find that hard to believe, considering everybody who I've ever seen interviewed who was on that ship. They specifically stated that in the morning, that flag was up on that mast, proudly proclaiming that it was an American ship. Now, of course, you could say, well, it could have been an Egyptian ship, and they just put an American flag on it.
Well, I'll say, and then we'll go to traffic here, without knowing any of the details, none of those theories or hypotheses sound insane to me. I mean, they are all things that realistically could happen.
All three could be true,
I think, yeah. We got Tom Arts with us here as we continue the Friday Road Show from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed. Tom Arts with us here this morning at Scramblers.
They're not taking the white blood cells and being racist.
Yeah, well, you don't need that.
Take the red ones.
That just by
The Indian one.
Either way, it's racist. Talking about blood donations off air for people that are like, what are they talking about?
Hey, today's date in history. In 1939, the Baseball Hall of Fame was dedicated in Cooperstown, New York. Here's one that I don't get, so perhaps you can educate me on this one. In 1942, Anne Frank, a German-born Jewish girl living in Amsterdam, received a dairy, or I'm going to assume it's a diary.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or what is that amount of money that you get? What's that called?
That's a but that's when a dowry.
Is it spelled D-I-A-R-Y like dairy?
No, I think maybe you're thinking dowry, but that's whenever, like, there's a marriage or something. In exchange for the marriage, you give somebody a cow.
Oh, I thought it also came at a certain age. But
maybe
anyhow,
I don't. Clearly, we have no clue.
She received a dairy for her 13th birthday.
Yeah, that's a diary.
Less than a month before, she and her family went into hiding from the Nazis.
Right, yeah.
Who's this Anne Frank woman, and why is this actually important? I mean, I understand about the Holocaust.
Yeah.
But how many other people received something prior to going into hiding to prevent being killed by the Nazis that aren't in today's date in history?
Well, so have you heard the Diary of Anne Frank?
No.
Okay.
That's why I wanted you to educate me.
Okay, yeah. Now, I'm going to say this, but I don't want people to take it the wrong way. That's just crazy to me. Not for any reason other than I don't know. It's one of those things that I just thought was kind of – so the story behind this is pretty interesting. Well, I think anyhow. So Anne Frank, they were hiding up. This family in Amsterdam was hiding them up in the attic. And so she was writing – she wrote all of the diary. And her family would in it. Somebody would narc on them. The Nazis would take them, and they all went to concentration camps. She actually survived. Her family did not. I think did she survive? But the diary survived. And it would published, and it was – very engaging to people because here it was a girl who's, would end up with her family and this horrifically tragic human atrocity occurring. But at the same time, she's writing a diary through the simplicity of a little girl that it doesn't necessarily understand, but knows what's going on, if that makes sense. And just about things that at the same time in her diary, it's been a long time since I've read it, because I think we read it in school, would also write just about these little things that are simplistic through the minds of a child that seem detached from the reality of what's going on. Does that make? I don't know if I'm describing it the best way. So it became this, it became very engaged. And I think what it also did is gave a very focused in, especially when you look at a child as a victim of something. After the liberation of the concentration camps, you saw sort of the mass, broad view of the horrors. But then to have it focused down to one little girl's experience was something that kind of hit people in a different way. And so it just sort of became this, worldwide, I guess you'd say, phenomenon at the time. I don't know if they still, I know we must have read it in school. Did she die in the or I think maybe she died like days before they were liberated. It was
And she had an illness.
Okay.
And her sister died. I think that, I don't know why I didn't just turn my microphone on, just over here yelling at you. No, I believe her and her sister died of an illness, and I think that the dad was the only one to survive, and then
Okay.
he later published the diary.
Okay, that's how. Yeah, that part.
So what you're telling me is this is a YouTube rabbit hole for me to go down.
Probably.
To start listening to it.
Now, I will say this. I'm not aware of any conspiracy theories involved with Anne
Well,
Frank.
it doesn't
Now,
have to be
Helen
a
Keller,
conspiracy
yes.
theory.
Oh, yeah, no, you ought to really, I think it's, I know there was a stage production of this, and I'm sure, there was a movie that was made around it, but you may find it really interesting.
My only
Yeah.
problem with YouTube is when it starts reading, when it has like it as you start listening to stories,
Mm-hmm.
that algorithm expands
I know,
greatly,
yeah.
and all of a sudden you're listening to something and going, "Wait a minute, how did I go?"
Yeah, like, wait, what? It's like, do you ever watch King of Queens?
Oh yeah, we used to, yeah.
So there was an episode where Spence, one of the side characters, Patton Oswalt played him, he was trying to impress this girl that he liked, and so he was talking about his TiVo. He got this new thing called a TiVo, and how it was real intuitive because it will give you recommendations based off of what it knows about your viewing habits and personality. And so he's showing it to her, and it was like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. It was all of these these different, very, very LGBTQ episodes, and his whole point was trying to impress this girl because he liked her. And anyway, I thought of that when you mentioned the algorithms. Like, why is it suggesting this? I went through once. I was at my sister and brother-in-law's house. This was years ago. I told my sister I did this about a year and a half later. And I went into his profile specifically, and I liked a bunch of, because you can go through and, what sort of things do you like? And like every homoerotic movie I could find, I went through, so it would start suggesting that stuff. And I think it was about a year later I had mentioned it to her, and she's like, we wondered why these recommendations kept coming up. They were like, what's he watching when I'm not around?
That would be too funny.
So anyway, little fun tip, little prank. Anyone wants to play that on someone that they care
Well,
about
I'm going
greatly.
to have to put in the Diaries of Anne Frank. in
Yeah,
YouTube
you
and
should
see
check
what
that
comes
out.
up.
Yeah.
In 1963, civil rights leader Medgar Evers, 37, was shot and killed outside his home in Jackson, Mississippi. In 1994, Byron De La Beckwith was convicted of murdering Evers and sentenced to life in prison, where he died in 2001. In 1964, 8 Southern African anti-apartheid activists, including Nelson Mandela, were sentenced to life in prison for committing acts of sabotage against South Africa's apartheid government. Loving v. Virginia, in 1967, unanimously struck down state laws prohibiting interracial marriages, ruling that such laws violated the Fourth Amendment. In my opinion, such laws violated the church.
Yeah.
That is a function of the church,
Agreed.
not the state.
Or if it didn't violate it, certainly was getting into their territory, into
Definitely.
their lane. Yeah.
In 1978, David Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years to
Oh, yeah.
life in prison for each of the 6 Son of Sam killings committed in New York City over the previous 2 years. Yeah, I did actually listen to the whole complete YouTube series of the. Oh, it was interesting. 1987, Ronald Reagan, during a visit to the divided German city of Berlin, extorted Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall. In 1994, of interest, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were killed outside Simpson's Los Angeles home. O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson's ex-husband, was later acquitted of the killings because, no, he did not kill either one of those two in a criminal trial, but was eventually held liable in a civil action. It is my opinion and my belief that it was the son.
Oh, you think it was O.J.'s son?
Therefore, the smaller hand, because his son was a chef. How were they slain? They were stabbed.
Well, you don't have to be a chef to stab someone.
Yeah, but it's the
You think
based
it's
on
just what he's most comfortable doing.
based on the autopsy report. It was a specific type of
Fillet.
of a cut within that in the body,
Okay.
which kind of pinpointed it to a specific type of blade, which that can be done in today's and back in that
All
time
right.
frame.
Well, that's a new one for me.
But yeah, there's a whole complete YouTube series on.
I guess what
O.J.
could feed
Simpson,
into
too.
it is he wrote that book. If I Did It, you could argue that that he did that in order to really take suspicion off his son.
Well, if
Like, make it look like he was just, really.
my
admitting to-
sons haven't killed anybody, but if I'm also at that point, because supposedly Nicole Brown was supposed to have been at the son's place of employment restaurant. She was supposed to be there eating, when in reality she actually went with what's his face. So there was I guess the son has anger issues.
Well, if you're correct, then I would argue yes, probably.
So yeah, I could.
I hadn't heard that one, but I hadn't really looked for any alternative theories.
I can honestly see how people. Well, actually, I can't because I've never gotten that angry. But I mean, there are times when I'm driving that I'm thinking to myself, I just ought to push this person off into the ditch. But I've never acted upon that.
But then you realize, being on your bike, you probably wouldn't come out.
Well,
the
no,
winner.
I don't have those tendencies while I'm on my bike.
Tom Hart's with us here. We continue the Friday Road Show live from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you need anyone to help, or if you know someone who is looking to sell their home, or they have questions about selling their home, or wanting to buy one, maybe move out of town or in town, whatever it may be, or family, friends that are moving from out of state, political refugees from California perhaps, and you want to make sure that they have the absolute best, because buying a new home is a big deal. It can be stressful, particularly if you are from another area, and not just the fact that the distance, perhaps, of traveling to check out the homes, but you don't know the city. Right now, if you've lived in the area, you kind of know where you work, where you go to church, the restaurants you like. You know the areas where the traffic's awful during drive time, and so you probably have preferences in terms of the regionality of where you'd like to live. But somebody who's not from the area, they don't know that stuff. But Emily Johnson does. And so there's probably no greater gift, no greater recommendation you can give someone or even yourself when it comes to helping buy a home or sell a home. That's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We'll have more Tom Martz here in a moment. Weather as well. Latest traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Saturday, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 85. Heat index values as high as 93. And taking a look at Sunday, partly sunny with a high near 74.
We got Tom Martz with us here at Scramblers this fine morning.
I'm going to cover the amendments again. Apparently, when I do this, I need to make the case that I am, A, not telling you whether you should vote yes or no, and B, I am not telling you where it is that I stand on a particular amendment. I'm trying to explain it in a way that is down the middle.
Well, hey, you know what?
Because I was following a Facebook thread that I don't even know how I'm friends with this person, or somehow somebody responded to a thread that I am friends with. And, well, Tom said, no, that's not what Tom said, type deal. It's like I have been specific to let people know that when I'm trying to explain something, it is not done in a manner. Like Amendment 3 is a classic example. You've got, and that for those that don't know, it's the one that's rewriting Article 1, Section 36 of the state constitution, where it's making the case that it's eliminating abortion. It's not doing that. So the people promoting generally because I see there's two different types of people in the pro-life movement. You got the pro-life movement that's adamantly pro-life, which means the act of an abortion would be deemed illegal completely. And then you have the pro-life people who are pro-choice light, which basically up to a certain point they can see how it is that an abortion should occur. Well, in the new Article 1, Section 36, which you're going to vote on in November, it specifically states that something about a medical emergency is the reason why you can have an abortion. Well, in talking to people who both know the insurance industry and the medical industry inside out, backwards, and upside down, to the point where it's beyond my level of comprehension, if a woman wanted to proclaim that she was suicidal, that's a medical emergency now. It's no
Right,
longer
yeah.
a mental health issue. It's a medical emergency. And yeah, you could actually use that excuse and you could use that reason. It would be up to each individual medical professional to determine whether or not it's a medical
Yeah.
emergency or whether it's a mental health emergency.
Well, even
at that
aside,
point in time.
aside from that, because you hear, well, what about the life of the mother? And my understanding has always been, and I've never heard anyone knowledgeable say otherwise, that has always been allowed. Even prior to Roe v. Wade, when abortion was illegal, if the mother was going to die, then that was an instance in which that was allowed, because it was felt, well, there's not a choice. It's not, and I think that people, when you talk about outlawing abortion, they think that, well, if the mother's going to die, then it's like, oh, well, and it's never been that way, even prior to Roe v. Wade.
Well, the first essence of an abortion that I can find in the United States actually goes back prior to the United States. Back in 1742, there was one that was done in Connecticut where this 18, 19-year-old girl got pregnant. She got pregnant to somebody who was very influential.
Which back then was middle age.
Yeah, I mean, that was back when it was a colony. Well, they went to a midwife back then, and they decided to give her all kinds of different potions to abort the fetus. Well, that didn't work. So then, yeah, a medical procedure was performed, and she ended up dying. So this abortion issue, this mindset, goes clear back into the colonial time frame.
Well, and I'm sure
they actually pressed charges against the medical professional like 3 years later for the death of this woman. And at a certain point, they decided not to follow through with the case. But this is a thought process that everyone just seems, well, because of Roe v. Wade. Well, no, it goes
right, yeah.
It goes way back further. Even if you read,
I'm sure it may go with thousands of years. Yeah.
Well, even if you read the book, and I forget the title of that Benjamin Franklin wrote, there is
The Farmer's Almanac. I'm just kidding.
No, it's not the Farmer's Almanac, but there's this book that was written back in the 1700s somewhere where part of the book even talks about how it is that you can abort a fetus with what kind of herbs that you can concoct to drink.
Yeah, it's not something that Americans, I mean, people have always killed people and figured out ways to kill people, and so, even if it was for barbaric reasons, perhaps, invading armies and just a way to, to me, it seems like something the Huns probably could have very well done in order to just precede themselves by reputation to scare the living daylights out of people, because they did all sorts of barbaric things to.
Well, yeah,
to
they
people.
also took the most proficient-looking women and made them birthing vessels for their future generations of Huns.
Now, let's not dismiss every tactic. We got Tom Martz with us. We're going to take another quick break as we continue the Friday Road Show from Scramblers, which now also streaming on YouTube. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. And Tom Art's with us here at Scramblers.
Now, was Darren talking about earlier? Was he discussing Amendment 5?
No,
The-
we
the-
didn't.
Sales tax.
We didn't go into any of the amendments.
Because one of the things I think people
We
don't.
talked about him shooting people with a BB gun, or his parents wouldn't let him have one. He suspects why.
Well, my parents should have never allowed my brother to have one because he shot me in the eye with a light
really?
bright. Hit me right here.
With a what?
A light bright.
So what? He didn't have pellets, BB. So he put.
Well,
no,
you
no,
remember
I
how
know,
the
yeah,
light
yeah,
bright
yeah.
had that little
Yeah,
shaft
yeah.
and then the big shaft? Well, that little shaft would fit inside the barrel
I'll be darned.
of a BB gun, and then when you pump that sucker up,
Yeah.
I just happened to look up above a wall at the right time, and he right there. Oh man, it was brutal.
Well, see, Darren said when they ran out of BBs, because there were like 7 of them, they all shared a BB gun. They'd go down to where the hogs were, and just in all the mud and everything, plug it with mud, and then I said it was like a version of paintball almost, and then they'd pump it and they'd shoot each other with mud plugs. But light bright, it's almost very LGBTQ, way ahead of its time. Was this in
Well,
California?
yeah. The only thing is it didn't leave a purple mark. Well, actually, it did leave a purple mark, but.
I never thought I loved light bright.
You know, I think one of the problems that the legislature is going to have with the repeal of the income tax and applying a state sales tax is going to be the fact that we're spending $50 billion.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that less than 10 years ago, we were spending $24 billion. So you're not
true.
making any reductions whatsoever. And, of course, I don't want that in the Constitution either. But you have shown that over the past decade, you are not willing at all to reduce spending. You just continue to spend.
Yeah, that does. I think that does work against them.
And people are getting
For some
frustrated,
people.
getting upset. They are like, well, wait a minute, where are the reductions
Yeah.
in government? I'm going to give you this authority to remain revenue neutral at $50 billion.
See,
and
I
I don't think that's the way it...
I don't know this, but I could see that approach being one in which they're trying to remove the potential marketing obstacles that those against this would put in their way. So, for example, like what you and I would like, hey, this is a great. Why are we just doing a revenue neutral thing here? We should be cutting. Well, they would be dealing with it. It would be effective. People that would try to scare people into thinking you're going to lose this program. This is going to go away. Police and fire, they're going to lose all their revenue because they're going to start cutting. And so, so I could see the thought being we'll just make it revenue neutral. So nobody can say, oh, we're increasing taxes, though, and those mechanisms are in place to prevent that, but because it's complicated, there's still some confusion over that, which I think is understandable. But at the same time, prevent people from scaring people into thinking they're going to lose their benefits. And I don't know if that was the motivating factor behind it, or maybe it's just more simple that way. I don't know, of trying to do it to where the revenue and the taxes, that the amount that's being taken away, that's not going to change at all. It's just the way that they are extracted from you changes.
See, I'm a huge proponent of a fair tax. And I know, of course, you got the arguments, well, it's not fair because this, that, and the other. I'm a huge proponent of a fair tax on the national level. I'm a huge proponent of a fair tax on a state level. When you understand conceptually what it is that a fair tax is doing, then it makes perfect sense because, yes, there is a mechanism by which there's a certain plateau that you're not paying any taxes at all. Matter of fact, this is the way Social Security was set up. If you were at an income level that was less than a certain amount, you didn't pay any Social Security tax. It was all on those people that made over that and above. Then all of a sudden they decide, well, we're missing all this revenue from all these people. Yeah. And, of course, you got the concept, if you're on an EBT card, you're not paying taxes on the things that you purchase anyway. When you go to a grocery store, I've watched the people who have EBT cards. They'll tell the person, "Oh, I'm on an EBT card." It eliminates all the taxes on the food, so they're not paying taxation on that to begin with.
Well, they weren't anyway.
They aren't. We are. Type deal.
I didn't know that's how that worked.
But I would prefer to have, and I don't know what it would be, if it's like 6.225% for the state, and then of course based on the fact that I think Amendment 5 is written in a manner that the local political subdivisions, that being city and county, are required to lower their sales tax revenues based on, and if they don't have a certain amount, then they have to drop property taxes.
Right.
They're playing a very fine line, and I hope they can do it if it does pass. That we're going to add this over here. We're going to remove this over here, and it compensates for
it's supposed to be
each other. I'm just
cancel each other
furious that we're spending $50 billion as a state, and there's no movement afoot from anybody, minus maybe 5 to 10 state reps and state senators who think we're spending too much money. I don't get the availability of going to the taxpayer and go, hey, I need more money for my family income. I have to go to my clients and say, oh, by the way, it's now going to cost you X amount of, and they're going to scoff. Well, wait a minute, why is it? I mean, my bills have been going up because the price of gas and price of fuel are freaking skyrocketing. And I'm almost at a point now where I'm just charging a fuel surcharge to people.
Right.
And they're scoffing at that. It's like, look, my gas was $2.25 a year ago, and now it's $4.75.
You're just taking advantage.
Yeah,
That's
just
what you
taking
businesses
advantage.
do.
You should eat that.
Yeah, you're taking advantage of the situation. That was the line that was used during the last election, when there was the discussion of higher prices, and because the Harris campaign, they were going to look at price controls because these companies were taking advantage of the inflation by jacking up their prices to make more profits. I'm like, nothing about that really makes sense.
But I am loving the little Trump things that said I did that.
Oh, I haven't seen
on
any.
The fuel on the
I haven't
fuel
seen
pumps.
it. Now, what I'm sure Trump and the Trump MAGA America is hoping that once they do drop way down again, that those stickers will stay there. They'll be like, yes, keep those there. If they do get to that point, they're starting to come down. In my head, 237. That's when I'll say, okay, we're back to normal, because no matter what the prices were fluctuating prior to the Iran thing elsewhere, in Republic, particularly that Rapid Roberts there, it was like, is it ever going to change from 237? It was always 237 no matter what. And so in my head, that's the marker where we, quote, were prior to Iran. But I kept thinking, because I always wanted to get back below 2.
See,
I wanted $1.99 again. That's how
my brother-in-law
greedy I
owns a Valero down in Texas.
Kidding.
And I have always been of the belief, and I had always been told, that gas stations only make like 6 cents on the gallon of gasoline that's dispensed. Well, he told me that's bogus. You can actually set your price to whatever it is that you want. There's kind of this.
Well,
there's this unwritten mindset that if a station down the road from you is like at 237.9, that you should also put 237.9, that if you drop it to 235.9, well, then that's going to cut into your earnings for the gas station. They don't make a ton of money on the convenience store stuff. They're making most of their money on the fuel that's dispensed at the fuel pump. And I thought it was the complete
See, I've never
opposite.
heard that before. And it may depend on the state also. I mean, if you have states where, because of the taxes and regulations, it's already, California, for example, their markups may be a different situation. They may rely more on the in-the-store stuff because they're like, we can't afford to make any more than a penny a gallon just because of how high it already is artificially. But, yeah, I had always been told, I'll have to look into that it was I equated it to movie theaters where it's not the movie ticket. They're not really getting much off that. It's the concessions, which is why the costs are high, and that's why the things inside gas stations are higher in cost usually is because of that. But
Well, see, I remember back when I was listening to Rush Limbaugh in the 80s, he would always constantly make the comment, and I know this is where I heard it from, that the fuel dispense, they're making about 6 cents a gallon. That's not where gas stations, for the cost of fuel, because under Clinton it was going up. And people were complaining that these gas stations were becoming super rich.
Right,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
were also talking about price gouging and those types of things, which if you understand why it is that gas stations raise their prices in term of an emergency, they don't want to be completely sold out of a
Right,
product
yes,
that others
yeah.
can use.
Right.
So
because people they'll buy filled jugs, milk jugs, and everything else with it. I'll have to look further because I've always understood that as well, that the gas station itself, they set their own price, but just because of the market and everything, that's not where the profit was coming from. It was from the stuff in the store, which is why that whole frickin' thing began in the first place, to start selling items like hot dogs and cigarettes inside. We got Tom Arts with
well,
us.
if you think about it, on cigarettes, you got state-mandated minimums.
Yeah. Tom Arts with us, continuing the Friday Road Show from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed. We got Tom Arts with us here this morning. We got like a minute and a half. Just give you a...
Hey, I'm going to read from our congressman.
Okay.
That would be Eric Burles.
Okay.
Okay. We've had federal briefings showing China is heavily involved in spreading misinformation about data centers, and it isn't hard to see why. China knows the future runs on AI, and they want the edge. We made this mistake before. We invented nuclear power and then let the left demonize it while we chase solar and wind, and it cost us decades. I'm a free market conservative. I don't go to Washington to tell you what you can build on the land that you pay taxes on. Let's lead the future instead of handing it to Beijing. I don't want either the United States government or the Chinese government building data centers. I also don't want the SAVE Act to pass, because the SAVE Act is just another step to that national ID card that's going to get to the point where when all these data centers are built, that once you leave the zone that you're allowed to go into or out of, They can track you. They can control what it is that you spend.
Well-
Your money will be attached to it. Everything.
Well, and we'll explore this further at another time because we're out of time. But I don't know how much of it, because most of the data centers I know around here were being privately built. So I don't know how much of it is government involvement. I know usually with any sort well, I don't know.
There's
I'll just
tax
have to
incentives and things
well,
of
no,
that
that's
nature.
absolutely 100% true. Yes.
And you also
Yes,
got people in
absolutely
the
true.
surrounding
Yep.
areas that are concerned about
Yep, no,
the
yep.
soil, the water, and
Oh,
those
yeah,
types
yeah,
of things.
yeah, absolutely, without question. Tom Arts, as always, thank you, sir.
100-acre solar panel farms.
It's good for the environment.
I hate those, too.
We got news in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. We are in hour number 3 here at Scramblers. It's a Friday road show, 6 to 9, rather, are the hours that we're out here on Friday. They're open until mid-afternoon, so you can come out and get lunch if you miss breakfast, or you can get lunch for breakfast if you'd like to. And we are also on YouTube. First time that we're doing the video audio stream while out on location. If you subscribe or normally follow us at Springfield's Talk 1041 on YouTube, then you can find us there. If you're like, well, the framing looks weird, and this is the first time we set it up, and so it was one of those deals where until we actually went live, we weren't necessarily sure how it was going to play out, and so we might make some adjustments in the future in order to have it framed out in a way that's a little more appealing to the eye. Or maybe not. I mean, what's really important is the messaging. Is that not the case? Brookline Door Works. There are a lot of things that, and I talk about this quite often as a homeowner. I know a lot of you are homeowners that are investments in your home. They're important investments in your home. Having a good quality garage door is certainly one of them. But like your HVAC unit and so many other parts of your home, routine maintenance is smart. Is it always fun? Once a year, schedule that visit, pay $100 and some bucks in order to make sure everything's fine and to get tightened up here and loosened up over there so that it's running more efficiently. No, not the most fun thing. But what's less fun is not doing that and then having to have some sort of replacement due to a catastrophic issue that happened years sooner than it actually had to because you were not keeping on top of it. I'm a firm believer in spending a little bit at a time to make something that is of value last and work the way it's supposed to, as opposed to not, and then having to replace it early and having its quality, its operational quality deteriorate over time. I just think that's a waste of money. And Brookline Door Works, one of the things that they do is they offer that as a service, annual fee. They'll come out, they'll make sure that everything is operating functionally the way that it should, check to see if there's anything that may need to be replaced. And when you're part of that program, you get head of the line when you make a call for some sort of situation, like a spring broke or there's some other thing that's not working and you don't understand. You call them, you're VIP. And they're also available to everyone 24/7 on call. So it's a Saturday and you got to head out somewhere, but you can't get out of your garage because that spring broke. Brookline Door Works, they will have someone on call for you. You can find them at brooklinedoorworks.com, also under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. And now the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Saturday, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 85. Heat index values as high as 93. And on Sunday, partly sunny with a high near 74.
Do you want to spend any time talking about one of your partners?
Oh, yes, I would love. Well, I'll tell you.
I thought since I was so busy trying to get the framing set up, I didn't know.
That looks a lot better.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah,
look a lot better,
I don't look dead anymore. Well, I mean, a little dead.
Well, you've been awake for a while.
A little less dead. I was like really, really pale. the way that you had the camera. The Pyramid Roofing Company, okay, we have had a crazy season when it comes to storms so far. We've had the crazy hailstorm that happened. We've had a couple of tornadoes in the area, and now we've got even more rain in the forecast. If you have any type of roof damage, or maybe you just would like to have an inspection done just to give you that peace of mind, make sure to reach out to Josh and his team. Last time I talked to Josh, I think he said they were about a week out on roof inspections, but if you do have an emergency, they do offer emergency tarping services as well. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home or to your business, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump over to traffic as we make our way into hour number 3 here. From Scramblers, I'm Nick Reed. Breitbart has a piece regarding Democrat Senate candidate Tallarico down in Texas. Ken Paxton, Ted Cruz are in no position to tell anyone what a real man is. So apparently last night on MS Now, there's a show called The Briefing, and U.S. Senate candidate Tallarico said both his opponents, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Senator Ted Cruz, were in no position to tell anyone what a real man is. It's coming, yes, from Tallarico. Do you know what Tallarico makes me think of? I can't be the first one to note this. A ventriloquist dummy. That's just what he looks like to me. Like, he could be sitting on someone's knee and have the little mouth lines drawn, maybe a monocle, and be cracking really bad jokes at the expense of whomever the ventriloquist is. That when I look at, and I don't even know if he's short and small in frame. I know I've seen photos of him, and you see interviews with him, but you know, oftentimes a person that you see on television and doing interviews or standing behind a podium, you don't really realize how tall or how short they are until they're with a group of people, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that they were actually so tall or so short or whatever. And so I don't know. He could walk in here today and be perfectly average in terms of build and height for the average guy. But in my mind, he's kind of this small little wafy thing that would, again, just sit on the knee of a ventriloquist, and people would be none the wiser as to whether he was actually a human being or not. Oh, he does look like the one from Goosebumps. Yeah, definitely. So he's on MS now. And to him, host Jen Psaki said, quote, Ted Cruz basically said he wouldn't use the word masculine to describe you. It seems pretty clear what they're trying to do here, at least to me. Not only are they're going after you, but they're trying to attack groups of people you've defended in the past, and including trans people and others. What do you make of that? So in Jen Psaki's mind, when they note that Tallarico isn't what traditionally is considered to be masculine, that's actually a secret attack on, I don't know, the trans community, which is sort of odd because oftentimes if you were to ask, I suppose they're traditional conservative, to describe a trans woman, they would say, yeah, kind of masculine, not pulling it off, but nonetheless. So Tallarico says, yeah, there's been a lot of talk in this race about what it means to be a real man, and recently on the campaign trail I told the story of my adopted father, the man who gave me his last name, the man who raised me as his son. Every Saturday morning, Mark Tallarico would mow our lawn, whether it was rain or shine, whether he wanted to or not. He insisted on mowing our lawn himself, and then without anyone asking him, he would go next door and mow our neighbor's lawn. Because our neighbor was elderly, she was a widow, and my dad never talked about it. He just did it because that's what a man does. A man takes responsibility. A man upholds his commitment to his family and his neighbors. A man does what's right even when no one is watching. Adding, and here's what real men don't do, again, coming from Tallarico. They don't lie and cheat their way through life. They don't sell their soul to the highest bidder. They don't steal from other people in order to enrich themselves. And so, as I've said before, I will keep saying that real men serve others, weak men serve themselves. So I welcome this debate about what it means to be a man. And I don't think Ken Paxton or Ted Cruz are in a position to tell anyone what a real man is. Now, there is actually, this is the interesting thing about Tallarico. Oftentimes, he manages to say things that are accurate, but then he completely misapplies them. It's like he doesn't understand like he kind of, you think, oh, he's on the right track here, but then he goes way off course. When he's talking about masculinity here, I think there are a lot of people, if you were going to talk, well, what is a real man? In terms of behavior, what many would consider to be a real man is not unlike what he is describing here. Is that just has that take care of others mentality, particularly those that are perhaps not physically capable of doing so themselves, and doing things like opening car doors for women, offering to carry their groceries for them. Helping out oftentimes, even if you're not asked to do so, just stepping up. Now, what's somewhat ironic about this is for a lot of people in his political party, his political persuasion, that's toxic masculinity. That's mansplaining. That's, the pushback on that, you oftentimes see women on the, we don't need men. We can do all these. Who is a man to think that he needs to come in and do this for me? So what Tallarico is describing as a real man is actually something that the left traditionally recoils against. This is because, when they talk about toxic masculinity, oftentimes it's perceived as they're saying that it is just clearly it's clearly bad. It's clearly toxic. It's like the treating women badly. But to the left, particularly political feminist, that's not what's toxic. What's toxic is a man trying to help a woman. A man just trying to explain something to a woman, or, offering to step in if something is physically daunting, because that's a man demonstrating that he thinks a woman is inferior, and that's what they recoil at. So it's an interesting contradiction where the behavioral perspective of masculinity he has a degree of accuracy on here, but it is the antithesis of what his political party thinks is a positive trait within men. There's also just the overall physical sense of masculinity. And here's the thing about that, and I would argue that this also applies to the physical sense of femininity. It isn't something you define, it's something you observe and you just know. You can just see if there is a grouping of individuals, and amongst them are a couple of guys that are just masculine. They're clearly masculine in a physical sense, and you ask 100 people who are just normal, actual individuals and say, who are the most masculine people in this group? They're all going to be able to point them out. Because it's an instinct that you have as a human being. Femininity, same way. The problem with the left is, and this is their sort of Orwellian way of trying to deny reality but create a different reality and force people to believe that their reality is the actual reality, is they try to take things that are natural, that are self-evident, and reject it and redefine it as something else. And when it comes to this issue of masculinity and the Democrats recognizing that they have lost the guy vote and that masculinity is something that they need to, quote, figure out how to embrace, and you see their lack of understanding of this, their refusal to acknowledge its self-identification, or the fact that it's just, you just know it, you understand it. When you have Tim Walz out there and Gavin Newsom talking on that podcast, and Tim Walz saying, oh yeah, I got chosen because of masculinity, because I work on a truck and I go hunting, and they try and list off what are traditional characteristics of someone who is naturally masculine, claim that they do those things, and then therefore identify themselves as masculine. So they almost have it backwards. Instead of recognizing that masculinity in its natural form oftentimes results in people participating in certain activities like hunting and yucking it up with the guys and sports and drinking beer and whiskey, they think that if they do those things, that in turn defines them as masculine. And while it may be masculine behavior or behavior that is traditionally recognized as masculine, that doesn't make the person doing it masculine. Just like putting on a dress does not make a man a woman, or pumping hormones into oneself makes you the opposite gender. And so this is an impossible task the Democrats have given themselves. And they, in regards to the truth, this is actually, I think, somewhat of a positive thing, because they're going to continue to embark on trying to going back to the emperor has no clothes conversations, telling people that they cannot or should not believe their own eyes. And this insistence that Tallarico, and I'm sure his advisors, and they're like, hey, you know, people don't see you as masculine, and it's Texas, and independent voters, particularly when it comes to men, we're hemorrhaging them. We've been hemorrhaging them. We've got to figure this thing out. We've got to appeal to people that want or are drawn to this masculinity thing. And so you've got to go out there and convince people. But you just can't convince people of something you're not. And their refusal to understand that and to recognize that masculinity and femininity, that female and male, that these are not some sort of patriarchal construct that was developed by people to oppress people, but like beauty itself, it is just something that can be and usually is traditionally recognized inherently, instinctually by human beings. And to go out and for somebody who clearly is not a masculine individual, and that doesn't mean he's a bad guy, but being like, oh, well, I'm masculine, and, Ken Paxton and Ted, they're the last people who should be, claiming that I'm not masculine and that they are. It doesn't work. It's like a person who is not charismatic trying to tell you they are charismatic. It's like a person who is flat out ugly, posting, and you may have seen these reels, people poking fun of them, going on social media on and on about how gorgeous and attractive they are. And the reason they go viral is because it's just instinctually understood that, no, you're not. Springfield's Talk 1041, broadcasting live from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Reed. There's a story in the New York Post about Mamdani living it up at one of the games at Madison Square Garden, the NBA Finals that are going on, and how this is, according to most experts when it comes to the laws and ethics and so forth, running afoul of city ethics rules. Now, this is just, everything about this is typical socialism. And one of the characteristics of socialism is the people who are in charge that are always talking about how they're in charge in order to make sure everyone is equal. They get to live a lavish lifestyle. Now, Mamdani was asked how much he paid for the tickets. He said roughly $1,000 for his nosebleed standing room only slots on Monday, Game 3. One source knowledge of the matter, according to the New York Post, said the tickets actually cost him $750. Now, regular folks have to shell out about $7,500 for the non-good seats, so the bad seats. So already he's getting a bit of a deal there. Now, what Mamdani's team did do is they acknowledged they reached out to Madison Square Garden ahead of the game and told the reps that the mayor wanted half a dozen tickets so he could take his friends to the finals. Madison Square Garden often does set aside a pool of tickets for VIPs. Sources noting that this move clashes with the everyday man image. Well, of course it does. One Democrat operative saying Mr. Man of the People hates corporations until he needs favors from them for cheaper tickets than any other New Yorker could only dream of. And that's absolutely true, but this is exactly how socialists work. This is why every socialist country or communist country or fascist country, where it's always, doing it for the working man, doing it for equality, yet they live high off the hog. The people who run the corporations that they do favors for and do favors for them, that they claim that they're going to stick it to, they call them up to get the favors, to butter their bread, and this is absolutely no different whatsoever.
Is this an ethics violation?
Well, Sarah's asking if this is an ethics violation, and according to... and the New York Post talked with, what's the name of, they're actually, so the city has a conflict of interest board in which they appear to say that, this is problematic, that it could run afoul of the valuable gift guidelines for elected officials. Soliciting the purchase of a ticket to a hot event violates ethics rules based on a variety of factors, including whether the public servant identified his city position or title, whether his city position title is clear, which of course that was used in order to get the tickets, and whether the tickets are not otherwise available to the general public. Well, by definition, they weren't, because Madison Square Garden sets these aside specifically for VIPs, which aren't supposed to be government people. But here, Mamdani the socialist uses his influence and his power to access something that the average New Yorker does not get. This is the opposite. This is the sort of thing he campaigns against. But this is also a guy who immediately upon getting elected made plans to move into Gracie Mansion, which is a big mansion that is available should a person who gets elected mayor want to live that lavish lifestyle. They don't have to. Mamdani, those votes weren't even finished counting, and he was packing boxes. And then started plans for upgrades with highfalutin devices like bidets so that he could level up his lap of luxury life. All socialists behave this exact same way, which is so frustrating because all of these people who claim that they're just the hard-working individuals, they want equality for everyone, how they refuse to recognize that they are the opposite. They scam people based off that idea, and then once they get in position of power, they live the high life. And Mamdani has no problem demonstrating that. The latest example, of course, being using his clout to get access to tickets that normal people would not to these NBA or to at least one of the finals. Springfield's Talk 1041 broadcasting live this morning from Scramblers. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, a chance for showers and thunderstorms with a low around 67. For your Saturday, an 80% chance of showers and thunderstorms throughout the day with a high near 85 and heat index values as high as 93. And taking a look at Sunday, partly sunny with a high near 74.
Lori Rook, Ozarks Elder Law, how are you?
I'm well this morning. How are you?
Just doing fantastic.
Good.
Yeah, because you always look just lovely and put together, we didn't even bother to tell you that we're starting the live video stream today.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah, so it pays to always be prepared.
Yeah.
And-
okay.
yeah.
I was like, wait, what's that? What's that?
Yeah, as I'm trying to adjust the camera over here. But so how are things?
Good. Just busy. So we finally just got everything officially set for the Veterans Day Parade, which seems like
Oh,
a really
great.
long way off, but we do put that on for
Right.
Springfield.
Mhm.
So finally got that all lined out. It'll be November 7th downtown again, and there's
So
some.
if people this early on, they want to participate, what do they do?
We're working on getting that all
Okay,
up.
got it.
But
All right.
it's a lot of moving parts working
Yeah.
with the city and police and all that. So it's officially on the city calendar. So if you go to the Springfield City of Springfield calendar, it's up now. So just
Nice.
putting that out there for all those that really look forward to that. It'll be a little longer again this year. We've expanded it again, and there'll be some other exciting things.
That's
So
cool.
just wanted to plug that real quick.
I think last week I read a review from a gal who had, I forget who she specifically named, the attorney with you all that worked on her case, I guess, I don't know what you call it. But she had recently lost her husband, and anyhow, she talked about one of the things that she really appreciated was how all of the, quote, legalese was broken down in such an understandable way. And I know that was the experience of a few weeks ago. I went, although my mom had started the process over in Joplin, but she came here, just we were having lunch and decided to do all the finalization, and because I'm instrumental in it, I came with her, and a person who handled our case, I noticed that immediately about she really was able to break it down. And I honestly, going into it, thought, well, I'm going to just sort of tune a lot of this out because it's going to be above my head. But it wasn't that way. Yeah. And so I thought it was interesting that it wasn't just her, that someone else had a similar experience with someone else in the office. And so, I don't know if that's something that you all really focus on, but it does make a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, we really focus on that. I think I've said this before. I worked at another firm, to kind of see if this was an area of I wanted to get in. My biggest takeaway when I went out on my own was that people did not understand what they were getting. They got told what they needed.
No, it's so true.
Sometimes it was just whatever cost the most. And then when they came in to sign everything, they left not really knowing what they understand. We get people that call us that say, hey, I have this. I have no idea what any of this means. So we really, really want people to have a good understanding of what they are getting and how it works.
Well, and to that point, now that you explain it that way, I totally saw that, because it was, okay, now this is what this does, and showing it and putting a little packet and this thing over here, this is what this does, and separating everything out. And then, I don't know if it's common or not, but one of the other aspects of it that I thought was very helpful was a sort of, I don't know if you call it a workbook or a booklet that my mom had been given of things that, should you go or when you go, here are my passwords, here are the website, like all of these things, even I think down to maybe funeral detail or just stuff that you don't think is going to be something that the people left behind are going to have to deal with. And I just thought that was such a great idea.
Yeah, it's we give you a lot of handouts in addition to your estate planning documents that kind of I call them like this is kind of in like layman's terms for your
Yes.
people that you're putting in
Yes.
places to read so they understand what their duties are.
Yes.
But then we also give you some worksheets like, hey, these are my passwords to my
Yes.
own, or this is where you can find this. So a little homework going out the
No,
door.
it was, we didn't really anticipate it because we didn't think about it, but it was just another one of those things like, man, this is really, really helpful. Hadn't thought about needing to do that. But so anyhow, I wanted to bring that up because I saw someone else had made a posting in terms of a review with a similar perception of that experience. And yeah, my recommendations, keep that up because it makes a huge difference.
Okay, good.
Yep, and then people, not that you need me to tell you that, but 10 area locations, ozarkselderlaw.com, set up that free consultation.
Yep, we
Okay.
we love what we do. So give us a call, and we love to educate you and help you plan ahead.
And keep us in the loop as the Veterans Day Planning Parade unfolds so we can make sure any info you want us to get out, we can do that.
Will do.
All right.
Thanks.
A bunch. Lori Rook, everyone. Ozarks Elder Law. Coming up, anti-Trump Democrat activist carving 8647 into the National Mall grass days before some of those big events are slated to take place. And then a couple of other interesting tidbits of news I think I'll share with you as part of the program on this Friday. From Scramblers, I'm Nick Reed. It is Sarah Myers.
That is me. Look, I am the queen of using that emergency service line that Foreman Mechanical offers. I swear, every couple of months, I'm calling him, and I always start it with, "Hey, Russell, sorry to call you so late," or "Sorry to call you on the weekend." And he's like, "It's no big deal. What's going on?" Last night, I went over to my parents' house. I'm really, really glad that I went over there, actually. And so we were hanging out in the backyard, and we were like, "What is that smell?" And then it just, like, clicked. We're like, "Oh, that is propane." And so the line going into their house has developed a very small leak. And so since it is attached to the house, that is something that Foreman Mechanical can handle. So called Russell. It was like 7:30 at night, somewhere in that range. I was like, "Hey, sorry to call you." He's like, "What's up?" And so I explained it, sent him some photos, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll be out there like as soon as possible tomorrow." And so
So, like, don't smoke any cigarettes around it.
right, yeah. Yep.
Did you know, at least this is my understanding, unless this is just one of those bits of information that people think they know, it turns out not to be true, that the gas actually doesn't have an odor?
Oh.
That they put odor in it so that if there is a leak, people can tell.
Interesting.
That's what I've always understood, anyhow.
Well,
Russell could correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, definitely smelled it. Glad we came over, and glad that Foreman Mechanical is going to get that all taken care of. So that is one of the other services that they do. You know, I always mention their water heaters or their mini split units, just simple repairs with all of your HVAC. But that is something else that they offer as well. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home or your business, reach out to Russell today or use that 24/7 emergency service line. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The number 8647, which has become the rallying cry to assassinate President Trump by Democrat activists, found carved into a section of grass on the National Mall Thursday, yesterday. Days before large crowds are expected to gather in D.C. for the UFC event scheduled on President Trump's birthday. Live webcam footage from from the showed the numbers cut into a large patch of discolored grass east of the World War II memorial. Officials have not determined when the markings were made. Photographs of the National Mall taken on January 5th did not show the numbers. The markings were not easily visible from the ground level Thursday. Witnesses said several emergency vehicles blocked off the area around 1 while the U.S. Army Golden Knights parachute team landed nearby. A law enforcement source told CNN that the Secret Service will assist park police if investigators identify a suspect. You know, this is part of the problem with the defense that is being put up by FBI Director James Comey, is that, and that judge ruling, everyone knows this is impeachment. Everyone knows that that's not a call to kill. All of a sudden, the terminology that has long been used specifically by the mafia, of which James Comey, as former director of the FBI, was intimately familiar, no longer actually means that. Everyone knows that 48 or that 8647 means impeachment. Of course, it was never ever used to describe it as such until James Comey claimed that's what he thought it meant. You can find nowhere in which the term 86 was used to describe when Clinton was impeached, when Trump was impeached. Never, ever, anywhere did anyone refer to it as 86ing Trump until James Comey came along. And another point that I made at the time, that James Comey just came upon these seashells and had no idea what he meant, but thought it clearly meant something enough to where he took a picture of it and posted it on social media, even though he had no idea what it meant. I noted at the time that many people would dismiss it as clearly James Comey wasn't a threat to the president. I mean, he's the former director of the FBI. Just because he tried to overthrow the presidency through a coup, presided over the department that would falsify evidence to get the FISA court to spy on Trump. Just because he did all of these things, that doesn't mean that he was actually going to try to assassinate Trump. And I noted that the real threat was the fact that this is a former director of the FBI that has credibility. And what is this going to say? What message is this going to send to people out there who are brainwashed into believing that Trump really is a danger to our country, is really going to set up concentration camps for political opposition and trans people, that he really is going to cancel future elections, all of these things that Democrats have claimed? If you have Democrat activists out there who buy into that stuff, and then the former director of the FBI posts the message 8647, not some deranged lunatic, not some urine-soaked crack addict who's homeless that spray paints it on the side of the building, but somebody with the credibility of the former director of the FBI. And I think the fact that this is put on T-shirts. Democrats put this on posters. They post it all over the place. It's being spray painted. They tag memorials with it. Now you have the 8647 carved into a section of grass on the National Mall. This needs to be noted and said publicly by high-profile people. None of these threats were occurring in this manner until James Comey did it. He is the reason all of this started. And anyone who wants to say otherwise, I challenge them to find any social media postings, any news stories about the 8647 threat being used prior to James Comey doing it. We're broadcasting live from Scramblers. It is the Friday Road Show. I'm Nick Reed. It is Sarah Myers, everyone.
That is me. Andy over at the Springfield Livestock Marketing Center wanted me to relay some information to you. And now this is something that won't be out at Springfield Livestock, but it's something that they are heavily involved with. Coming up, the Stockton Lake Rodeo. That will be June 19th and 20th. Gates open at 4 p.m. and the fun starts at 8 p.m. It will be at the Zumwalt Expo Center. You can find more information at StocktonLakePRCARodeo.com, and it sounds like it's going to be a really fun time. They're going to do a rodeo dance both nights, nightly kids events. There's going to be food. There's going to be merch, and then, of course, the rodeo. So once again, that is June 19th and 20th, gates opening at 4 p.m., the Stockton Lake Rodeo. And, of course, you can find more information about Springfield Livestock Marketing Center under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Yay.
Yay.
The White House hitting back at Ariana Grande yesterday after the Wicked actress slammed the Trump administration for using one of her songs in a social video depicting immigration and custom enforcement. So this pops up every so often. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson telling Fox News Digital, quote, "We'll say this one last time. What's actually barbaric," because she's like, "It's barbaric what you guys are doing." And Abigail Jackson said, "We'll say this one last time. What's actually barbaric, inhumane, and heinous are the criminal illegal aliens who have injured and murdered innocent American citizens." The 32-year-old had blasted the White House earlier this week using her song "Bye" in a TikTok video. Writing in the comments section, "Please do not ever use my music in relation to this barbaric, inhumane, heinous nonsense F-ice." Now, the caption of the White House video saying, "Bye-bye, President Trump has delivered the most secure border in history." As of Thursday, the sound appeared to have been removed from the video. Now, far be it from me to tell the White House how to respond to these things, but here's what I just would really like, and this is in a common theme that I go to anytime these celebrities who make their money partially off concerts that have the tightest, most thorough security of any venues in this country, or at least as tight as. These are venues you are only allowed in with permission. Only a certain amount of people are allowed into an Ariana Grande concert. You have to go through a process in order to get into the concert. You have to purchase a ticket. Once you have the ticket and you arrive at the venue, you have to show your proof, your papers that you are allowed to be in there. Then then you're in the Skyway or Breezeway or whatever it's called. To get into the actual part where the stage is and the seating is, you generally have to show it again. If you are at a lower level, you have to once again show and prove that you are supposed to be there in order to get to that lower level. And if you don't have that, guess what? You are escorted out. You are removed. If I were the White House, I would say to these celebrities like Ariana Grande, when you stop doing that, then you can criticize us. When you stop requiring people to show proof that they are allowed to be in there, and when you stop removing people who don't have that proof from your concerts, then we can sit down and hear your concerns about immigration reform and enforcement. That's just my suggestion. Hope everyone has a fantastic day, weekend as well. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.